Bristol Bay is the easternmost arm of the Bering Sea, at 57 degrees to 59 degrees north, 157 degrees to 162 degrees west in southwest Alaska. Bristol Bay is 400 kilometers, 250 miles, long and 290 kilometers, 180 miles, wide at its mouth. Upper reaches of Bristol Bay experience some of the highest tides in the world. One such reach, the Neshagig Bay near Dillingham and another near Naknek in Kvichak Bay, have tidal extremes in excess of 10 meters, 30 feet, ranking them, and the area, as 8th highest in the world. Coupled with the extreme number of shoals, sandbars, and shallows, it makes navigation troublesome, especially during the area's frequently strong winds. As the shallowest part of the Bering Sea, Bristol Bay is one of the most dangerous regions for large vessels. After establishing some temporary settlements in the late 1790s, the Russian-American company sent exploratory parties to document the coast and nearby inland areas of Bristol Bay. One of these charted the area between the Kuskokwim and Neshagig rivers. Neshagig River, draining into Bristol Bay. Bristol Bay is home to the world's most abundant sockeye, red, salmon fishery, as well as strong runs of chum, dog, salmon, coho, silver, salmon, chinook, king, salmon, and pink, humpy, salmon, each occurring seasonally. 6. Chinook return to their freshwater spawning grounds earliest in the summer, followed by sockeye and chum. Coho and pink salmon swim to their spawning grounds last, later in the summer. Fishing activity peaks for specific species during times of the highest concentration of salmon moving from the saltwater Pacific Ocean to the brackish Bristol Bay, then finally to their freshwater natal spawning streams at the headwaters of the many lakes and rivers in the Bristol Bay watershed. On an international scale, sockeye salmon are a relatively rare creature. Like other wild salmon species, sockeye harvests fluctuate but comprise 4 to 7% of global salmon production and 13 to 20% of wild salmon harvests. Between 2011 and 2014, sockeye salmon accounted for 5% of the world's salmon harvest by volume and 15% of them. More than 54 million salmon surged up its rivers toward their upstream spawning grounds in 2023 season. Scientists who have studied the region credit the vast, wet, undisturbed landscape for this massive salmon run. Regional subsistence fisheries provide 99 pounds of salmon per capita. Without that renewable, free protein, many people could not afford to live in Bristol Bay. Villages around the region are creating jobs and sustainable development opportunities based on the resources of the region, not at the expense of them. Most valuable commercial salmon fishery in the world. It supports over 15,000 American jobs, generates $658 million in total labor income per year, and is worth approximately $2 billion annually. This will continue if the headwater streams remain intact. Bristol Bay's salmon fishery creates $14.7 million in revenue for local government entities, more than paying for its costs of management. In 2018, the Bristol Bay region was 48% of Alaska's total salmon ex-vessel value, and 38% of total number of salmon harvested. Pebble's Phase 1 project, currently in federal permitting, would destroy at least 80 miles of streams and 3,500 acres of wetlands, though due to lacking data, these numbers are likely to be much larger. Furthermore, the mine plan we see today covers just 1/8 of the nearly 11 billion ton deposit, which Pebble has repeatedly suggested it plans to develop. The Bristol Bay watershed in southwestern Alaska supports the largest sockeye salmon fishery in the world, is home to 25 federally recognized tribal governments, and contains large mineral resources. The Neshagik River and Kvichak River watersheds are the largest of Bristol Bay's 6 major river basins and compose about 50% of the total watershed area. The Bristol Bay watershed provides habitat for numerous animal species, including 29 fishes, more than 190 birds, and more than 40 terrestrial mammals. Chief among these resources is a world-class commercial and sport fishery for Pacific salmon and other important resident fishes. The watershed supports production of all 5 species of Pacific salmon found in North America: sockeye, coho, chinook, chum, and pink. Because no hatchery fish are raised or released in the watershed, Bristol Bay's salmon populations are entirely wild. These fish are anadromous, hatching and rearing in freshwater systems, migrating to the sea to grow to adult size, and returning to freshwater systems to spawn and die. The most abundant salmon species in the watershed is sockeye salmon. The Bristol Bay watershed supports the largest sockeye salmon fishery in the world, with approximately 46% of the average global abundance of wild sockeye salmon. Between 1990 and 2010, the annual average inshore run of sockeye salmon in Bristol Bay was approximately 37.5 million fish. Annual commercial harvest of sockeye over this same period averaged 27.5 million. Approximately half of the Bristol Bay sockeye salmon production is from the Neshagik River and Kvichak River watersheds. In the Bristol Bay region, salmon constitute approximately 52% of the subsistence harvest. Subsistence from all sources, fish, moose, and other wildlife, accounts for an average of 80% of protein consumed by area residents. These cultures have a strong connection to the landscape and its resources. In the Bristol Bay watershed, this connection has been maintained for at least the past 4,000 years and is in part due to and responsible for the continued pristine condition of the region's landscape and biological resources. Tundra wildflowers bloom along the Cockatoo River. The Bristol Bay watershed supports several economic sectors that are wilderness compatible and sustainable. Commercial, sport and subsistence fishing. Sport and subsistence hunting. Non-consumptive recreation, e.g. wildlife viewing and tourism. Considering all these sectors, the ecological resources of the Bristol Bay watershed generated nearly $480 million in direct economic expenditures and sales in 2009, and provided employment for over 14,000 full and part-time workers. The Bristol Bay commercial salmon fishery generates the largest component of economic activity and was valued at approximately $300 million in 2009, first wholesale value, and provided employment for over 11,500 full and part-time workers at the peak of the season. The Bristol Bay, Alaska drift gillnet fishery is unique due to its intensity and short time frame. Spanning just 8 weeks, gillnet fishers participate in the world's largest sockeye salmon run. The days are long and the conditions extremely variable, but fishers return season after season. As an industry, commercial fishing is one of the most dangerous occupations. The Bristol Bay drift gillnet fishery is no exception. Between 2000 to 2007, 17 deaths occurred in Alaska salmon drift gillnet fisheries, United Fishermen of Alaska, 2008. There is no data on whether these fishers were wearing personal flotation devices. This study was conducted to investigate perception of risk and experiences of Bristol Bay, Alaska drift gillnet fishers while delivering their catch at a tender vessel. Additionally, we investigated the acceptability and potential for the implementation of the hierarchy of hazard controls, including engineering, administrative and personal protective equipment (PPE). The study entailed a pre- and post-season survey of Bristol Bay drift gillnet fishers, open May through August 2021, both online and in person in Naknek, Alaska. The participants were asked to complete the survey electronically. A total of 138 fishers, including 56 vessel captains and 82 deckhands, completed the survey. Most fishers agreed that the lack of sleep affects their awareness and critical thinking. Both captains and deckhands agreed that a personal flotation device, PFD, would help them survive a fall overboard most of the time. Both captains and deckhands also responded that they have never considered wearing a hard hat while delivering. The most favored controls for reducing risk at the tender was the utilization of non-skid on walking surfaces, pre-tied loops in tie-up lines, pre-season training and PFD use. We recommend that additional efforts be made to encourage pre-season training about delivery safety for fishers, boat improvements such as non-skid paint on the deck and PFD use while at the tender. Last summer I spent my first season gill netting on the pristine Youth, Denina, and Alateak watershed of Bristol Bay. Despite the uncertainty of going into the season in the midst of a worldwide pandemic, we caught a good amount of fish and laughed more than I knew possible under such harsh conditions. As an all-women captain and crew, we were able to just be ourselves, which felt really special for all of us. There was a lot more room on deck for vulnerability, honest emotion, and teamwork. Women working together is a beautiful thing, and we bonded over the shared adversity, born of mechanical breakdowns, lack of sleep, grueling manual labor, and rough weather. The Bristol Bay drift net fishery was an adventure of a lifetime, and I hope to return to this amazingly abundant watershed. Coming from Sitka, where fish hatcheries have supplemented our wild runs, I was surprised to see the amount of wild salmon of every species, not just the famous Bristol Bay sockeye salmon we often hear about. Quote, "I spent my childhood hook and line trolling for salmon and longlining for halibut with my family in southeast Alaska. Every summer, our family of four tucked into our old wooden boat to catch fish, along the rugged coastline of the immense temperate rainforest that is the Tongass. Later, when I was in my 20s, my dad and I started gill netting together, and we learned to pick fish from the net, side by side. I crewed with Dad for many years, with Sitka as my home port. All told, I've never missed a salmon season in my 32 years of life, and I hope I don't have to anytime soon. Raised on a fishing boat, salt is in my blood and salmon in my bones. In grade school, my friends had bologna for lunch while I ate abalone. I used kelp strands for jump ropes, and when I found myself alone I befriended sea stars, seals and ratfish. The beauty of the commercial fishing lifestyle in Alaska is both a connection to the ecosystem of land and sea, and after it's all over, the unbounded time to do what we love. As an adult, this sort of seasonal lifestyle is one I've learned to embrace wholeheartedly. When we're out at sea, we're not worried about anything other than catching fish, eating and sleeping. We're in the present moment. Anyone who has commercial fished knows that time passes strangely on the ocean, and I think it's the immediacy of the experience that drives the phenomena. After the fishing season wraps up, and the myriad of small chores are done, I like to take the time to journal, make art, rest and process my experiences. It's really important to me to advocate for wild places and the fish that are my connection. Quote, salmon is one of the most popular seafood and sushi ingredients in the United States. In fact, on average, we each eat over 3 pounds of salmon every year. Environmentally sustainable salmon can be tough to come by, but salmon lovers should not despair. Environmentally friendly options are out there, but it's important to know what to buy and what to avoid. The Monterey Bay Aquarium Seafood Watch program is here to help. After our scientists evaluate the environmental sustainability of salmon fisheries and farms to see how well they meet our standards, we rate them green, yellow, or red. Seafood Watch then makes recommendations to consumers and businesses that correspond to the rating system. Recommendations include best choice, good alternative, or avoid. Buy first. Green rated seafood is well managed and caught or farmed in an environmentally responsible manner. It poses a low environmental risk. Buy if a best choice option is not available. This seafood poses a moderate environmental risk. Find out if the salmon is wild caught or farmed. If in doubt, it's probably farmed Atlantic salmon. A good rule of thumb is to buy US wild caught salmon. In fact, only a tiny amount should be avoided. Scroll down for more information. Buy wild-caught salmon from Canada, except Chinook or coho salmons caught on British Columbia, Canada's south coast. Buy Chinook salmon farmed in New Zealand. This is your best choice farmed option. Buy Atlantic salmon farmed in Maine or the Faroe Islands. Buy salmon certified by the Aquaculture Stewardship Council, ASC, or Marine Stewardship Council, MSC. Avoid farmed Atlantic salmon from Canada, Chile, Norway, or Scotland, except when purchasing from businesses committed to sustainable seafood. It's ASC certified, or you confirm it's from a good alternative source. Scroll down for more information. Salmon rated green by Seafood Watch is the most environmentally sustainable. Green rated wild salmon comes from a healthy population, and the well-managed fishery has little to no impact on other marine life and habitats. Farmed salmon is rated green when producers have minimal impacts on wild salmon populations and the environment. Salmon rated yellow almost always means the fishery targets a healthy salmon population, but it also catches salmon from at-risk or overfished populations. When farmed salmon is rated yellow, it means there's significant uncertainty about the impacts on wildlife and the environment, or there's one issue that needs substantial improvement. Salmon rated red by Seafood Watch is not environmentally sustainable. For wild salmon, it means the fishery catches salmon from overexploited or endangered populations. Some fisheries also catch steelhead, aka rainbow trout, from at-risk populations. When farmed salmon is rated red, it means there are serious concerns about one or both of the following issues. Too many farmed salmon are escaping into the wild. When this happens, the farmed salmon can spread disease and potentially affect the genetic composition and fitness of native salmon populations. Learn more about escapes. Chemical use to control diseases or parasites is too high. Information about chemical use is lacking, banned substances are used, or a combination of these issues. Learn more about antibiotic use in aquaculture. Once again, it's that time of year. Our crew of the FV Ava Jane are back in Bristol Bay, Alaska, for the annual Sockeye Salmon Run. For those unfamiliar with the location, Bristol Bay, Alaska, is situated close to the bottom left corner of the state's continental plate and is encircled by the Aleutian Islands, facing the Bering Sea. Summertime brings the sight of the Sockeye Salmon Run, a wild event that turns these pure rivers into a flurry of activity. As another season is underway, let's take a closer look at what the 2024 Sockeye Salmon Run has in store. To guarantee that future generations can continue to enjoy the benefits of this rich ecosystem, a concentrated effort has been made in recent years to encourage sustainable fishing practices in Bristol Bay. Our fishermen are dedicated to protecting the delicate balance of the ecology while still responsibly catching salmon. This is demonstrated by their carefully managed quotas. As stewards of the sea, we recognize the value of preserving a healthy marine ecosystem and are committed to ensuring the survival of the sockeye salmon population in Bristol Bay. As sockeye salmon migrate from the open ocean to the freshwater rivers and streams of Bristol Bay, historical data and satellite tracking studies offer important insights into the timing and patterns of their journey. Scientists estimated that the 2024 Sockeye Salmon Run might get underway early, with fish entering the water as early as late May or early June. As of now, we are getting into the peak of the Sockeye Run. Recent forecasts for the 2024 Sockeye Salmon Run in Bristol Bay are optimistic. Early indicators suggested an average run, with 39 million expected to return this year. In the last few days, that projection has been increased to 53.2 million. This year's Sockeye Salmon Run was projected as an average run and is now supposed to be a strong run. In addition to monitoring migration patterns, fishery managers and biologists closely track spawning escapements and harvest projections to assess the health and abundance of sockeye salmon populations. With the recent increase in projections, this also means that the harvest projection has increased. Using a combination of aerial surveys, sonar technology, and genetic sampling, researchers estimate the number of salmon returning to their natal streams to spawn, known as escapement. Based on preliminary data from 2023 and historical trends, experts predict that the 2024 Sockeye Salmon Run could see healthy escapement levels, potentially surpassing previous records set in recent years. Before setting sail, the crew of the FV Ava Jane conducted a thorough inspection of the entire vessel, leaving no stone unturned. With safety and efficiency in mind, every moving part is scrutinized to ensure optimal performance during these crucial weeks. The goal, to minimize the risk of breakdowns while out at sea, allowing the crew to focus on the task at hand, bringing in the catch. A crucial step in the preparation process is getting the nets shipshape and ready for action. For drift gill netting, like that used in the Bristol Bay sockeye salmon run, meticulous attention to detail is paramount. This involves adding new mesh to the nets, ensuring they're in prime condition to capture the prized salmon as they make their way through the bay. With years of experience under their belts, the crew knows that success starts with a well-prepared net. With the boat in tip-top shape and the fishing gear loaded on board, the final step was to stock the cabin with provisions for the journey ahead. Dry goods, carefully selected to sustain the crew during their month and their half stint at sea, are meticulously stowed away. From hearty meals to snacks for sustenance, every item is chosen with care, ensuring that the crew has everything they need to stay nourished and focused on the task at hand.